Hey friends, it's Corey from Hey Let's Make Stuff, and today is another double header. I am teaming up with another friend of mine, Jamila from Color Me Crafty, and we are showing you two different ways to sublimate on cotton or dark fabrics. First up, in my tutorial, I'm going to show you how to sublimate on glitter HTV on this dark cotton t-shirt. And then in Jamila's video, she's going to be showing you how to use glow-in-the-dark HTV to sublimate. If you're watching this premiere live, hello, welcome. Jamila and I are over in the chat answering any questions, chatting with you. If you're watching this after the fact, that's totally fine. At the end of this video will redirect to Jamila's channel so she can show you how to do this process with glow-in-the-dark HTV. I get a lot of questions on how to sublimate on cotton or dark fabrics, and the short answer is you don't. Sublimation ink is transparent, and so when you put it on dark fabrics, you can't see it at all. It also needs polyester to be able to bind the ink to the fabric, so if you're just using cotton, it's not going to work very well. They're hacks. So these hacks that we're showing you are going to wear a little bit more like HTV versus sublimation. With sublimation, you're actually binding that ink with the fabric. Here we're binding that ink with the heat transfer vinyl instead of the fabric. So it's going to wear like a glitter HTV shirt, not like a sublimation shirt. That being said, HTV can last a good number of washes, so this is a good hack if you want to make a dark or cotton shirt. This particular hack is better on simple images, so you don't want a big intricate image that you are going to cut out just because lining up all of those small pieces can be really difficult. So for this tutorial, I'm getting a little crafty for Halloween, and I have a Witchy Vibes PNG file for you. You can grab that file for free in my craft library on my blog. So below in the description, there is a link. This is file S16, so you'll go into my craft library, you'll scroll down to the sublimation section and look for file S16. You can download it for free. Let's take a look at what we're going to need to make this project. To start, you're going to need a sublimation printer with sublimation paper. I am using my Sawgrass SG1000, but you can use any sublimation printer that you have. Next, you're going to need your white glitter HTV. For this one, I'm using the brand Caesar, but there are a lot of brands that will work for this sublimation project. You can also use other lighter colors of glitter HTV. I've seen it done with gold and silver, and they all have very cool effects as long as you pick an image that will work with the type of and color of glitter HTV that you have. You're also going to need a cutting machine with print then cut capabilities. For this, I'm using my Cricut Maker 3. And in that machine, you're going to want to use a standard cutting mat. Additionally, of course, you're going to need something to put your image on. I am using a Bella Canvas Tri-Blend tee. This tee is so soft. If you've been around here any length of time, you'll know that I love Bella Canvas garments. They are so soft, they come in so many colors, and they have a lot of eco-friendly processes that they put in place when making their garments. Even better, they have something called their Maker's Account, which allows you to buy Bella Canvas garments at wholesale pricing without a reseller license. I will go ahead and share the link to sign up. It's free and it's a really great program. You're also going to need heat-resistant tape and some heat-resistant gloves, along with a weeding hook and some protective butcher paper. And finally, you'll need a heat press. You can use anything from an easy press to a professional press. I am using my Walla press from Heat Transfer Warehouse. If you're in the market for a heat press, I want to give you a little plug for something I just launched with one of my blogging friends, Angie Holden. We created an online course for helping you choose a heat press called Heat Press Roadmap. We walk you through 17 different heat presses, what we like about them, what we don't, how to use them. We make projects with them so that you can choose the best heat press for you. So I'll go ahead and link that in the description as well. All right, I think we are ready to make this project. For this project, I am printing through Cricut Design Space. Now, this is not generally my first choice when I go to print a sublimation print, but because I'm using the print then cut capabilities of my Cricut Maker 3, it is the place where we have to start. All right, so here I am in Cricut Design Space. I'm gonna go ahead and upload my file. In the image upload screen, I'm going to choose Complex. I'm gonna click Continue. Now, if this was a different type of file, we may need to remove a background, but because I've designed this file specifically for this type of project, there's nothing else we need to do in this screen, so hit Apply and Continue. And then we're going to upload it as a print then cut image. Go ahead and add that to our canvas. The image will come in quite large, so I'm going to go ahead and resize it for my shirt. So for this project, I'm going to make it 9.75 inches wide. You can make it any size you want depending on what size paper you have. So if I had the larger paper inside my printer, I could actually make this larger because Print Then Cut can now print on 11 by 17 inch paper. But I just have the 8.5 by 11 inch paper in my printer, so I made this 9.75, which will fit on that standard sheet of paper. Now this is the print then cut portion of our project, but we also need just the regular cut portion of our project. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this. And then for this one, I'm going to change the operation to cut. So you'll see that the image went away and it was replaced with basically a gray outline of the image, and this is exactly what we want. we are going to cut this piece out of that glitter HTV, and then we're going to sublimate the actual image onto this piece. Now we're ready to make our file, so click Make It. And in the load screen, I'm going to choose On Mat, and I'm going to stick with that 12" by 12" mat. And on the first screen here, you'll see that I've got my print then cut file. And on the second screen, you'll see that I have my HTV file. So we're going to want to mirror both of these layers, just like this. Then I'm going to click Continue, and it's going to connect to my Cricut machine. First, it's going to have us print our sublimation image. So I'm going to click Send to Printer. Now I'm going to select my printer. I could select my Sawgrass SG-1000 directly, but I like to send my project to PrintMate so I can make sure all of the settings look correct for my job. This brings me to PrintMate. I can make sure that I have my paper sizing correct. I do want to make sure I have the mirror turned off because we've already mirrored it in Cricut Design Space, and you can see right now over here on the right that it reads correctly, and we want to make sure that that is actually backwards so that it appears properly when we go to iron it on our project. So I'm going to turn that mirror off. Then I'm going to choose my product here. I'm going to choose HTV instead of polyester. Changing your product here can help your Sawgrass lay down the ink a little bit differently depending on the substrate you're using. Everything else looks good to me, so I'm going to go ahead and hit print. All right, now I have my print. The next step is to have my Cricut cut around the edge of this print. Back here in Cricut Design Space, I'm going to browse all materials, and I'm just going to choose copy paper. I'm going to choose a little bit of a heavier copy paper just because the sublimation paper is a little bit heavy. Click Done. And now I'm going to put my print on my mat. So I'm going to line it up here, just like this. I'm going to load it into my Cricut, and the sensors in my Cricut will read these registration marks, and it will cut around the edge of my image. To remove your sublimation paper from your mat, flip your mat over and carefully peel it away from your image here. That will keep your image from curling. Next up, we need to do the HTV portion of our project. So I'm on my second mat here. I'm going to browse all materials, and I'm going to search for glitter. Choose Glitter Iron-On. Iron-On and HTV are the same thing. Cricut calls it Iron-On and the rest of the world calls it HTV, but it is the same thing. Now we can put our HTV on our mat. You want the shiny side, which in this case is also the sparkly side. You want that side down on your mat, just like this. If you're finding that your material isn't sticking, you can move up to a purple mat. This is a fairly new green mat, so it's sticking pretty well, but if you're using an older green mat, sometimes this glitter HTV is just a little bit strong for that mat, so you may want to move up to that purple mat. I'm going to load this into my Cricut machine, and my Cricut will cut it. One of my favorite ways to remove excess vinyl is to use an acrylic ruler and a rotary cutter. So I'm going to go ahead and just line it up here, just like this. Make sure I'm not cutting off anything. This way I can always get a straight edge. Works really well. Then I can carefully peel away that extra HTV. I have a straight edge for next time. And then I'm just going to grab my weeding hook and pull up this excess HTV around my image. Just like this. Now before we go any farther, let's go ahead and make sure that these line up. You just want to make sure that nothing went wrong in between your sizing here. The top image should match the bottom image perfectly. Now it's time to press our project. Set your heat press for 320 degrees for 20 seconds to start. I have my garment here, and before we put it on the press, I'm going to go ahead and lint roll it just to make sure there's nothing that's going to interfere with the adhesion of the HTV. Once we have lint rolled our shirt, it's time to pre-press it. This will remove any moisture and give us a very flat surface for pressing. So you want to get your shirt as straight as possible into the press. Normally I don't do this from the side. I'm being very careful not to hurt myself here on the press. This is not my normal angle. Where possible, you want the seams of the shirt to be off the bottom platen of the press. It's much harder with small garments. This is a large t-shirt, so it should work pretty well. If you can't, you may want to consider using a pressing pillow in between the layers of your project just to lift up that pressing surface so you get a nice even press. I'm going to go ahead and press this in and pre-press it for 15 seconds. You can see here that I now have a very flat surface for pressing. It is quite warm, so just be careful. Now I'm going to place my decal on my shirt. You want to make sure you're placing it in the correct direction. You can always test with your image because you know you're going to flip this image over and you want to make sure that it works there. So I'm going to stand up here just a little bit so I can center this on my shirt, just like this. You can use a t-shirt ruler if you'd like. I'm going to go ahead and just sort of eyeball it. I tend to eyeball everything, sometimes to my own detriment, but I think that is going to work. So I'm going to press it down, and because this shirt is quite warm from that pre-press, it presses down nicely. And now I'm gonna press this HTV at 320 degrees for 20 seconds. And I love peeling back glitter vinyl because it just always works so well. So we'll peel that back there. Now we're gonna do the sublimation part, so I need to reset my heat press. I'm gonna set it for 375 degrees for 60 seconds. Now we can do the sublimation portion of the project. Now, if you're worried about the color coming out of your sublimation printer, especially if you have a converted printer, you can use a big piece of polyester fabric to test your projects. So I have all sorts of tests I've done here, and I wanted to make sure that this was gonna turn out exactly like I wanted, so I went ahead and did the little witchy vibes image I have here on here first. I always recommend testing on polyester fabric. It is a lot cheaper to buy several yards of this than it is to buy a whole new t-shirt, iron on, recut this project. You can save yourself a lot of headaches by testing your images first. So let's go ahead and place our sublimation image. It should fit perfectly. You want to line it up as perfectly as possible. There is a small chance you may have, white edges, but if you've done everything properly, it should fit perfectly. Use some heat resistant tape to tape around your image here, just like this. Then I'm gonna add a couple sheets of butcher paper. This just protects the platen of your press from any blowout from the sublimation ink, so you can get ink on your press. We'll push this in, and we're gonna press it at 375 degrees for 60 seconds. All right, I carefully lifted up my press, trying not to disturb the image at all. And I'm actually gonna let it sit here and cool. The last thing I want is to pull off that image while it's still so hot that it can actually sublimate and ghost my image. So I'm just gonna let it cool for a few minutes, and then we'll peel it back and reveal our final project. Let's peel back that sublimation paper and see what we've got. I think this turned out really cute. I have a little tiny bit of white over here on this edge, but with this light pink background, it's hardly noticeable. So cute, right? I am not really a costume person, but I do love a good t-shirt, so I will definitely be wearing this for Halloween this year. If you found this video helpful, I would love for you to give it a like. If you'd like more sublimation, Cricut, and laser tutorials, make sure you subscribe to my channel. I'll see you next time.